I am Maria Garcia de Fleury. Saint Jean Francoise de Chantal was born in Dijon, France on January 23rd, 1572. Her mother died when she was 18 months old, and her father, a distinguished man with a strong personality and great faith, became her greatest influence. At 21, she married Baron Christophe de Raboutin Chantal, with whom she had 6 children. She had been married for 7 years when her husband died in a hunting accident. Her father-in-law forced her to live in his castle, threatening to disinherit her children if she refused. There she endured mistreatments and humiliations. She dedicated herself to raising her children, carefully managing the property her husband had left her, and distributing abundant alms to the poor. There was hunger and scarcity in the country, and every day a long line of beggars arrived at the castle to receive abundant food and good medical care. She herself visited the bedridden on her ranches and cared for the most disgusting, and abandoned sick. The entire large staff of workers on her estates prayed morning and evening with her, attended Mass every Sunday, and received religious instruction every week. They loved her like a loving mother. In 1604, she met St. Francis de Sales and asked him to be her spiritual director. Thus, she grew in spiritual wisdom and holiness. When her children were well educated and prepared to succeed in life, she decided to dedicate herself completely to God, distributing her jewels and valuable belongings among her relatives and loved ones. Working with St. Francis de Sales, they founded the Order of the Visitation of Annecy in 1610. Their plan was to establish a very practical religious institute similar to that of the Daughters of Charity of St. Vincent de Paul, but it ended up being a strictly cloistered congregation called the Visitation of St. Mary. This congregation welcomed people even with serious defects and very poor people, as long as they had strong desire to attain holiness. St. Francis de Sales repeatedly stated that every religious house is a hospital for souls, where those with a sick soul come, but who desire spiritual healing. Mother Jeanne de Chantal instructed her novice mistresses to ensure that the writings of Saint Teresa of Avila were read and studied in the order's novitiate. The writings of Saint Francis de Sales, along with his most famous book, The Introduction to the Devout Life, led Mother Chantal and her companions to a very high degree of spirituality. When St. Francis de Sales died, St. Vincent de Paul took over the spiritual direction of Jeanne and her sisters. St. John was a true contemplative and at the same time a very active person, filled with multiple projects for the glory of God and the sanctification of souls. She established more than 86 houses of the order. Jean de Chantal taught that holiness is within the reach of all, regardless of their state of life. She's a model of perseverance and faithfulness in the midst of difficulties, always maintaining trust in God, because wisely she knew that with God we always win.